wasn't being, letting them know they didn't stop. And that ain't why he did that. He prayed openly. Some people don't even pray privately. What did he say? If you deny me, what are you going to do? Deny you. So we got to learn. Daniel was, like I said, setting an example. So I'm just saying he was very consistent in what he did. He continued to pray. He wasn't going to compromise. So they knew that was the only way to get him. So they went and made this decree, and then ran back to Darius and say, now what you going to do? He's praying. He's on his knees praying. Now what are you going to do? What are you going to do about that? Daniel's enemies were jealous of him and of his high position in the kingdom. Because Daniel was a righteous man, they knew there was no way to bring a true accusation against him because of any wrong behavior. Therefore, they sought to find a way to stop his worship and devotion to God through fear of harm. Daniel's enemies knew that his habit was to go into his room 3 times a day, open the windows toward Jerusalem, and kneel down to pray and worship God. That was in Daniel 6:10. With this in mind, they persuaded King Darius to issue a decree that for a 30-day period, no one would be allowed to petition any god or any other pagan god or anything other than the king. Anyone caught disobeying this order would be thrown into a den of lions. Now let me touch that. These dens of lions, you know how these young guys would get these pit bulls and train them, make them mad, fight each other? Well, they would go looking out, these Persians would go out looking for wild lions and then feed them raw meat so they would attack people. This is what they did. They raised them that way to torment people. So, so some people say den in a pit, but they were a pit of lions. So Daniel's enemies knew his habit. Daniel continued to worship after the decree had been issued. He didn't stop. I love the part of this story that says that he prayed with his windows open as he had previously before. In other words, he was not trying to keep his worship a secret. He had reverential fear and awe for God that far exceeded any fear of man. Because Daniel refused to compromise his worship, his enemies brought him before the king for not honoring the decree. Daniel 6:13. The king had no choice but to have him thrown into the den of lions. King Darius spent a sleepless night because he respected Daniel. And in the morning, he cried out in front of the den, "O Daniel, servant of the living God, is your God whom you serve continuously able to deliver you from the lions?" That was in Daniel 6:20. In triumph, Daniel came out of that lion's den and totally unharmed. Can you imagine? When I read that part, you know what I said? Psalms 27. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life. Whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even my enemies, come to eat of my foe, that's when the lion's coming. What will they do? They shall stumble and fall. Though a host may camp about me, the war may rise against me. In this will I be confident, that this one thing that I desire, that I will seek after, that I will dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the glory of the Lord. Because what? In the time of trouble, he going to do what? He shall hide me in his pavilion. We know that he shall hide me. This is what Daniel felt like. And the thing about it was like at the end of the story, like I said, they felt like some angels. The angels, God dispersed his angels to Daniel's in the pit, in the den. And what'd he do? Them lions came toward, I can imagine seeing it. You're going to see Daniel play? The lions came towards him, and their mouth got lockjaw, as you call it. Their mouth shut. Can you imagine just standing there looking and the lions jumping? couldn't bite you. I mean, I've done that because they tell me sometimes when a vicious dog chases you, don't run. you better just stand there. Because if you act like you're afraid of them, that's when they attack you. And I didn't believe that till one day a dog was getting ready. You know, I was walking, I'm looking, is he coming at me or what we going to do here now? So I just stood there, and he stood there. But he kept barking. But, you know, it's the fear. You know, it's the fear. You cannot fear as long as that. And that's what Daniel had. Daniel had strong, what does it say, strong faith. His faith was so strong, he knew that his God was going to show up and show out. And that ain't, as they say, that ain't how the story ends. That ain't how the story ends. Those enemies that he had, those people that on the job that was trying to bring him down, trying to make him lose his job, Darius came up with his own decree, and they ended up in the pit. What did the book of Esther say? You dig one ditch, you better dig two, because the ditch you dig for me might be for you. So you have to be careful about what you do. You have to be careful. And you know, when you think about it and you make a decision about things that you're up against, whether it's illness, whether it's anything, sometimes you have to be careful. You know, they say you can't have everybody praying for you. You can't tell everybody your situation, because you can't compromise with people about things. And when I read about Daniel, I thought about, we got a lot of Daniels here at Friendship. A lot of Daniels. And I'm not going to mention the name, but some of you may know who I'm talking about. This young lady lost her sister. Now, they used to all sit sort of over there. And I was here then. Her sister passed. She raised her nephew with her child. Then her mother passed. Now she's diagnosed with cancer, and they said the chemo ain't working. This young lady is not going to compromise with the world. She still worried about she was still coming to church. She's still feeding the hungry. She still was going to work. Now I said, look at Daniel. Look at Daniel. Some people just, all with me. Where's your God? Some people that are told, when you come up against something like that, anything you come up against, what was the title says that we're teaching on? Says faith in the time of trouble. Now what you gonna do? What would Jesus do? Come on, ask yourself. You ain't gotta ask, I ain't gotta ask Sister Gordon. I ain't gotta ask Sister Hooker. All I gotta do is ask God. And know what he gonna do. Because everybody is just like on Daniel on the job. Everybody is not for you. These people were unsaved. How do you know whether they're saved or whether they're godly people? Put your trust only in the man, the sovereign man. The Lord is your light and your salvation. Whom are you going to fear? Are you going to fear cancer? Are you going to fear, or are you going to know that it's in God's hand? You got to give it all to him. He's the only one that can handle it. I don't care what man say. Doctor said, I had a grandson that was diagnosed with cancer. He said, Grandma, they said I only have 2 years to live. I said, honey, God is the only one that has that. Man can't tell you how long you got. We're living for God. God makes that call. But you know, I mean, I thought about it with Daniel. Even with Daniel, when Daniel didn't compromise with the diet, he didn't eat that. We have to be like Daniel and have that strong faith. We got to know who our God is. Our sovereign God. He's got to be, what is he to you? He's my everything. He's my protector. He can be what you want him to be. He can be your lawyer in a courtroom. He's going to handle that situation for you. Not man. Man ain't got nothing to offer you. Man can't do a thing for you, but pray for you. And sometimes they might not be praying in the right admission. So I'm just saying, you know, do you like Daniel? Get on your knees. How many times? Daniel prayed 3 times a day. Sometimes, and then even Darius. What did Darius do? He fasted. He was praying himself for Daniel, hoping that Daniel's God showed up. But Daniel had no doubt that his God wasn't going to show up and show out on them lines. This is what the confidence that we have to have in our God. I don't care what you're going through. Through it all, he's going to bring you through it. Have that confidence as Daniel did. Stand up for what you believe in, because you can fall for anything. We've come a long way as this is Black history. There's times that we were scared to even go out, move around. In the South, if you look at a person the wrong way, they didn't have no trial or anything. They would just take a rope out and hang you. So I'm just saying, we've come a long way in life. And it ain't no different now. What's the difference? What they do, take out a gun now. I mean, you look every week, the killings after the Super Bowl. I'm like, in Texas, come on. When is it going to stop? Lives matter, not just Black lives, all lives matter. People are dying. Now they're hitting little young kids getting hit. Bullets don't have no eye. They don't have no eyes. So only thing I'm saying to you in our lesson this morning is just keep on praying. Praying. Don't cease of praying, because we're living, I think, sometimes in the last days. We look at people with illnesses. We look at the times that are changing. You read book of Revelation and you know we're living in those days. You read it and you see where the illnesses and the venom that we're in, the same thing they went through, and we're calling on help. We're calling on our God, our sovereign God, as Daniel did. But Daniel didn't have no fear. And what Doris did, he believed in the God that Daniel was serving. You need to believe in that same God that Daniel was serving. Because Daniel let them see he had a God that he believed in. His faith was so strong. And I like that when I read that. And that's why I gave you that example of the Christian lady in our church that's a Daniel. You have to look at that. And I mean, that was so amazing to me. That was so amazing. She wanted to know what did she have to do to keep coming to serve God. She didn't want to even miss being here with and among Christian people. It uplifted her, gave her courage. I mean, sometimes that, we have to be encouraging to other people. Even though, sometimes people say, I'm okay. And some people, this is the thing and then I'm going to end this, but I know that there's people that are going through things that don't want to share it, but I'm going to tell you something that I learned. I know God has revealed to some people, like a lady came up to me, I forgot who it was. She said, have you seen Sister Langston lately? I said, no, I haven't been at church either. I had to work. So she said, I don't have her number. And I said, well, I don't give out numbers, but I'll call and check on her. And she had been out of the weather. So sometimes, like they said, sometimes if you don't see people for 2 or 3 days, you need to call on them. Call and see if they're okay. I like the fact that how Darius respected Daniel and his God, because that's somebody, like, people look at you on the job, that he was, I think this is why he promoted him, because, he didn't give up. He stayed the same way consistently, and he didn't change. He still prayed, regardless of what the decree said. I'm going to continue to serve my God. And even in chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, we get to chapter 6, he ain't changed. He's still praying to his God 3 times a day. And God was there for him. So we have to know and learn that long as you keep on praying, long as you keep looking up to the man that holds the key to your life, he can be whatever you want to be. He can be whatever you want him to be. He will protect you. He will be your lawyer. He will be your doctor in the sick room. As one time I had, during COVID, I had a real bad cough. I wore my mask, and I went to my doctor. I swore I had COVID. I swore, because I could not stop coughing. He took some blood. He said, you don't have it. I said, no. I said, I got it. I said, I'm staying away from people, because no, he had to even give me cough syrup for it. But I'm just saying, this is sometimes like, you say, you don't know, and people don't say, things to you that what's going on with them, Because I remember one time Pastor Turner used to say he hate to ask somebody how you doing, because they would tell him, they get a long story. But the thing about it, some people you say something to, they say, just pray for me. I'm going through something right now. I really don't want to talk about it. Just pray for me. It's a lady at the job. I work PRN at a assisted living. Her father had passed away. I asked me to work for her. He was 96 years old. She had COVID and gave it to him, and he died. She could not handle it after that. It took her a long time to get herself together. And I was missing church. I said, honey, are you okay? Are you coming back to work? So she said, well, right now, I don't think I'm trying. And she came back, started crying. But I'm just saying, and I prayed with her. I prayed with her. This is what Daniel did on his job. I remember when I was younger, in my 20s and 30s, I had a guy, but he was like a Jehovah's Witness. And I was working at Borden's, and he tried to bring his religion on me, and we would, talk about it and stuff, and everybody would call him and say he was a religious freak, But the thing about it, this is what we're supposed to be. Our character is supposed to be that same way. We shouldn't have to preach, really. They should see it. They should see the God in it. They should see this is what Doris seen in Daniel. He's seen what Daniel was about. So this is why he got promoted. This is why he was over the nations, because of what his character was. He was consistent in what he did. And Darius learned to trust in his God. I think it's something that I did write about that with Doris at the end when he said, in verse 25, 27, just as King Nebuchadnezzar before him, King Darius issued a decree to every people's nation and language, declaring praise to the God of Daniel. Darius recognized the greatness of God, that he is a living and eternal sovereign, all-powerful and able to deliver his people. Nevertheless, it is unlikely that Darius came to a saving faith here. He instead accepted the God of Israel as just one of the many gods. But like I said, God was the true God and sovereign. And through Daniel's testimony, through Daniel's life, Daniel was able to save some other lives. Daniel was able to bring people to see his God. When you're going through something, let them see your God. Let them know that you know who holds the key in your life. That is my lesson for this morning.
Before Sister Michelle comes forward, I just want to make a comment about King Darius, because he was believing about Daniel's God, trusted him and believed in him. And as a result of all these presidents, council, congressmen, excuse me, he got forced into doing a decree, as the teacher talked about. Is that right? And the decree was such that anybody praising Daniel's God in a 30-day period, they had to be thrown in the lion's den. Is that right? Y'all hear that? Fast forward. We're living in an age today where we see something similar. Can anybody see something similar what's going on today? You got a king, and he's getting influenced by all these people around him to do what? Evil. Disparaging people, populations. And there's a battle going on in Washington, D.C., they call it the right and the left. Well, the Bible says that one day the good Lord is going to separate, and he's going to put the sheep on the right and the goats on the left. Well, so anyhow, there's a correlation, and as the teachers are coming forward, we need to see and hear and look for ourselves that there's times when what's in the Bible applies to what's going on in our lives today. That's called life application. Amen. So let's give the teacher another hand clap.
Amen. Let's give Sister Brooks another hand. I just love to hear you teach. You just teach with such passion, and it's what she shared was so true that I was listening and I was thinking about the fact that Daniel not only had faith, but he was faithful to God. And we saw that same story play out with the three Hebrew boys last week, and the fact that they stayed faithful to God no matter what the king wanted them to do, or no matter what their enemies wanted them to do. And that led to God coming to their rescue. And they knew that he would. And I was also thinking about, she quoted Psalm 27, but as I was thinking, I was hearing Psalm 91. In the time of trouble, he will hide me. And that is the kind of assured faith that we have to have, in that knowing that no matter what we face, God is always going to come strong on our behalf. So powerful lesson. And as Deacon Valentine was sharing, the book of Daniel is it's a history book, but it's also prophetic. And if you look at the last half of the book, actually the last chapter, Daniel sees the vision of Jesus Christ coming. So it turns into a prophetic book, but just like Deacon Valentine was saying, a lot of what we're seeing, the themes that we see in this book, not only share a really succinct history of the people of Israel, but also what we're going to be facing. So I encourage you, if you haven't already, go read through Daniel. It's not a long read. It's really good. But that it will encourage you in your faith, no matter, just like Sister Brooks was saying, no matter what you're facing, whether it be, sickness, whether it be, something you're facing on the job, something that you're facing in your life, by having faith, you know that God is going to, again, come strong on your behalf. Excuse me. So next week's lesson is titled Faith and God's Purpose, and it'll be coming from Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 1 through 5. Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 1 through 5, Faith and God's Purpose. We thank you for continuing to come to Empowerment Lecture. And for those who are tuning in virtually, thank you again as well. I do want to remind you that we do have the small group classes that still take place Sunday mornings. If you prefer something a little more intimate, or if you come a little later and you still want to be able to hear the lesson, feel free to join us for those small group classes. At this point, we will go ahead and transition for morning worship. Thank you.